Two in the Junior European Championships for rhythmic gymnastics. Today, the top 26 girls from the individual competition go through their 4 exercises again to decide the overall Junior European title. The favourite at the start of today's event is the 13-year-old Bulgarian Teodora Alexandrova. We join the competition live in the 3rd of 4 rotations, and indeed so far Alexandrova has lived up to expectations. She leads the way ahead of Valeria Vatkina from Belarus. The third of her exercises on clubs, Evelina Bencea from Romania. All of these gymnasts under 15 years of age. This is the Junior European Championships. And fairly important competition as far as these girls are concerned. Most of them will go up to senior level next year, and this is where they really get their chance to impress the judges and start to build their reputations. Well, very accurate stuff from the Romanian girl. She's in 15th place after 2 exercises.
Julia Raskina, Belarusko. The following exercise with ribbon will be performed by Julia Raskina, Belarusia.
Spanish girl, 9.5 her score for the rope exercise. Dominguez in 6th place after 2 rotations. Spanish have something of a reputation for producing very, very high standard junior gymnasts. One of the girls who has a real chance of taking a medal here, Julia Raskina from Belarus. Scored 9.45 on hoop and a huge 9.7 on clubs. And that drop won't have done her any favours. 0.1 deduction immediately on that pullback. Raskina really did need a faultless exercise here to get her up in the medal. She's in 4th place, but 2 drops. It'll be very difficult for her now to make up that ground. And the ribbon dying slightly on that pullback. The judges have been very, very strict about that in this competition, taking massive deductions off the group event every time the ribbons stop moving. And look determined not to drop that one. The double roll really snatched the ribbon stick. Well, finishes with a smile, but she'll be extremely disappointed with that exercise. 2 fairly silly mistakes. Those 2 drops quite near the beginning. Nothing wrong with the throws, just simple lack of concentration. Took her eye off the ribbon stick, and that is fatal. Letizia Rossi. Halfway down the field after 2 rotations. This competition too, really the elite junior gymnasts in Europe. The top 26 from the first day's competition go through to contest the individual all-round title. And very well held, side balance, going straight into that deep flexion. She actually loses some of the difficulty there on that move because she assisted the leg into the vertical position. Not quite a clean catch on that double leap throw. And really had to rush for the end of that exercise. Was in danger of finishing behind the music. Slightly messy on the catches there, not quite precise enough, not getting to the end of the rope. And of course, every time there's a little piece of rope dangling, that is a deduction. And Chea 9.3 for that club's exercise. Huge cheers for the Czech girl, Lucie Bakova. She's the leading Czech in this competition, in 16th place after 2 rotations. These junior exercises, mostly not quite as difficult as the routines performed by the seniors, and because of that, the exercises are marked out of 9.8. That's split into an execution and composition score. And almost looked in danger of losing the hoop there on that back scale, but really held it well. Very supple gymnast. You can tell on the split jumps, the legs going way past splits. Almost a hyperextended position. Well, very clean routine by the Czech girl, very neat. That's always the hallmark of the Czech gymnasts. But I'd say there's a question mark over the difficulty of that exercise. Really didn't pack enough risk in there to be up there with the leaders. And Ruskina 9.25 for that ribbon exercise. That's disaster for her. Really was in with a chance of a medal, but there'll be no hope now. That really drags her down the rankings. Chernolavkova. Must be quite difficult for their coach in this rotation. The 2 Czech girls following each other onto the carpet. Coach really hasn't got time to go through any errors the first gymnast might have made. She's too busy making sure the second girl gets onto the other carpet in time to start the exercise. Series of fouette pirouettes. All the difficulties in rhythmic gymnastics, of course, coming from the body movements themselves and not from the throws, which is a mistake quite a lot of people make when they first watch the sport. Double illusion and slightly had to move back for that catch. But really spotted that club well to make sure she finished without a mistake. Perhaps not quite as neat as her teammate. Not quite the elevation on the jumps.
Na sestavu se stuhou nastupuje Dora
Letitia Rossi,
Maďarsko. And the following exercise
12th
with the
place
ribbon will be
after
performed
that
by
third
Dora
rotation on rope.
Hungary.
And the last girl to go in this third rotation. Finishing off with the last piece of apparatus, traditionally always the last piece of the ribbon. Dora Toth from Hungary. And look at the leg strength on that balance. Kept the leg absolutely rock solid, almost exactly to the vertical as she completed the turn. And this girl has very hyperextended feet. Is so high on the toes. And that is a real benefit in this sport. Slightly messy there though on that pullback catch. Really had to sort the ribbon out. That could have been disastrous. A nice turn. Double pirouette with the leg very high. It's a very tricky turn. Well, some nice body work in there. Very strong in the legs, that girl. But I'd say slightly messy into the throws and the catches. Perhaps taking just a little bit too long to prepare for the throws. And the judge is very hot on that in this competition. You really do have to get into those ribbon throws very, very quickly before the ribbon dies. Otherwise, you're looking at deductions.
So this was Hungarian competitor, and before we start
9.25 for Chernolavkova.
Part B, we have to wait a little while because the following gymnast has got the same apparatus.
You can see on that double illusion turn how she spots the club. She does one illusion, then has a quick look up, see where the club is before she goes into the next turn. And that's when she realized the club was slightly behind her and made the adjustment for the catch.
Tak jak sami vidíte, už máme známku maďarské závodnice.
And that ribbon exercise really dropping down the Hungarian girl a couple of places down the rankings.
Competitor is on display, and we will continue.
There's confirmation of the score so far, but anything could change on the last rotation. Alexandrova in the lead, but can she maintain that sort of form over the last piece?
France Telecom, which offers the full range of telecommunication services, is a patron of gymnastics. New York, Rome, Lausanne, London, Stockholm.
Competition of this Junior European Championships. Catching there the tail end of the ribbon exercise from Camila Zara from Romania. In the lead at the moment in this competition is Teodora Alexandrova from Bulgaria, ahead of Valeria Avatkina from Belarus, and Elena Chalamova in there with a shout of also taking a medal from Russia. Christodoulou from Greece. Nice piece to finish on, the rope exercise. Generally one of the pieces where things can't go too disastrously wrong. It's also the piece that these junior gymnasts will perhaps learn first of all. Most of these girls will have started training at the age of 6, and the rope is generally the first piece that they're introduced to. The reason for that is, of course, that it's one of the pieces of apparatus where you can do very little damage to yourself. Not much chance of knocking yourself unconscious with a simple piece of rope. Nice leg strength on that side balance, straight into the deep flexion. It'll count as one of her B difficulty moves. The Greeks, very well-trained gymnasts, have conconcentrated a lot in the last 4 years on really building up the strength in their team, really conditioning the gymnasts well. Perhaps, though, when they're this age, the junior gymnasts lacking just a little bit of expertise with the apparatus. Slightly messy with the rope on a couple of occasions, and every time that happens, of course, it's a deduction. A teammate next to go with hoop, Irene Polyderou. A lot of the rhythmic gymnasts, just in this last year, choosing to wear the all-in-one leotards, covering the legs. And they were originally introduced to allow the Muslim nations to take part in this sport. Chosen some very dramatic music here by Queen. The instrumental part of Innuendo. Oh, lovely turn, double pirouette. Held the leg very high, almost touching her nose. So difficult to center those spins. Some nice turns in that exercise. But again, slightly simplistic with the apparatus. Really didn't take any risks at all.
Will be performed by Karen Kestenbaum, Israel.
The gymnasts who have really surprised everyone at these European Championships. Perhaps the Israeli team really have excelled themselves. Karen Kestenbaum on clubs. A couple of years ago, Israeli gymnasts would never have qualified for this stage of the competition. Israel, in fact, did so well on that first rotation. They finished 9th in the country competition. That's when all the individual gymnast scores are added together and the country medals or team medals are decided. Russia were the winners in that battle, ahead of Belarus and Bulgaria. Turning split jump to recapture that double throw. And triple pirouette with a leg in attitude. Didn't quite finish it off though. No mistakes for the Israeli girls. They really have attacked this competition. No signs of nerves whatsoever. And 9.15 the score for the Greek girl in first place at the moment. But of course, it's early days in this fourth rotation. Yulia Fokalu from the Ukraine. The halfway stage, she was in 10th place. And a mistake already at the start of this exercise. Didn't quite get the stick there in time on the pullback. Fokalu, 14 years old, from Kiev, where she's trained at the Derogina School of Gymnastics. Some very famous gymnasts have come out of there, including her coach, Irina Derogina, who was 3 times world champion in the 70s. Now she's trying to be different with this ribbon exercise. She's trying different sorts of elements, but really the ribbon too static on too many occasions. And again there on the pullback, so much of the ribbon just dead on the floor, and that is not allowed. And goes for safety on the final throw, just a single roll with that very high throw of the ribbon. Slightly disappointing performance from the Ukrainian girl. So much for these Ukrainian juniors to live up to. They've seen their senior gymnasts take gold and silver at the European Cup just a couple of weeks ago. Just composing herself for her rope exercise, Ziegler from Hungary. Had to really reach for that final jump through the rope, that fish leap. Slightly overcooked the throw and then didn't really get the elevation on the final jump. Judges looking out for skips and leaps through the rope with this exercise. And really prepared for quite a long time for that double roll to finish, really tying the rope into a knot to make sure it stays together in the air. And again, the judge is looking out for the gymnast to be going slickly into the throws and not taking too long over the preparation. That's where the Bulgarian and Russian gymnasts really do excel. They're so quick to go into their tricky elements. Anna Chichova at the halfway stage, she was in 5th place. Chichova just 14, as most of the gymnasts here are. She's trained in Moscow. She's quite late to gymnastics, only started this sport in 1989. Lovely control on that arabesque. Chichova in the typical Russian mold, very long-legged, very narrow-framed. Most of these girls are chosen specially for their physique. Really does help in rhythmic gymnastics to have the right shape. Most of them almost the same shape as ballet dancers. That helps with the lines and the jumps. Perhaps slightly heavy music. Slightly odd choice of music for that little girl. She seemed to struggle almost when trying to interpret the music, but very strong body elements. Esther Dominguez from Spain. Sorry, Lital Bonvol, I do beg your pardon, from Israel. Next to go on clubs. So far, she's a leading Israeli in this competition. 11th equal. Israelis have had a lot of help from the Russians in the coaching of their rhythmic gymnastics team. That will perhaps explain how they've shot up the rankings in the last 2 seasons. Clubs exercise, quite often the one that most gymnasts least look forward to. Really does take the maximum amount of concentration, especially when there's 2 clubs in the air at once. You really do need your wits about you, because it's not pleasant if they come down on your head. Ziegler 9.175 that rope exercise, and really could have scored a lot higher if she just managed to be a little bit neater. Someone who never has any problems in the neatness stakes, Alexandrova from Bulgaria. Leading this competition. And really is a star in the making, this girl. Seniors, watch out next year when she moves up. Oh dear. Now there really was no need for that drop at all. Perfectly placed ribbon. She really just took her eye off the ribbon stick after that double chaîné turn. Alexandrova, she's one of the young girls in this competition. She's 13. From the very famous Levski club in Sofia. Most of the Bulgarian champions have come out of that club, and she's indeed coached by a former Bulgarian champion, Valentina Ganeva. But what a shame about that drop at the start of that exercise. I mean, she really got the routine back together very, very quickly. I expect that mistake almost surprised her as much as it surprised everybody else. Alexandrova, so very good on the pirouettes and turns. Manages to control them almost better than even most of the senior gymnasts. Perhaps a little question mark over how tall she's going to grow. She's a particularly short gymnast. And if she doesn't grow, she'll find it difficult to keep up with some of the more elegant Russians the older she gets in her career. Jessica Derbamitz from France. The French, another nation who've really catapulted themselves up through the rankings in the last couple of years. They've taken a lot of advice from the Bulgarians. They've got 2 Bulgarian coaches now in their gymnastics center in Calais. And it really is paying dividends, the amount of effort they're putting into this sport to really try and put the French team on the map. Series of fouette turns there, slightly laboured. Double attitude. The leg nice and high on that turn, slightly slow into the spin would be my only criticism on that. The French gymnasts seem to have really concentrated on getting the body work right, because that's where all the difficulties come from in this sport. Perhaps don't often have so much expertise with the apparatus, but I'm sure that will come. Nina Vengust from Slovenia. The only Slovenian gymnast who's made it through to the top 26 competition. Since the breakup of the Soviet Union, of course, it's given so many more gymnasts the opportunity of international competition. Double illusion. Turning split jumps there, but didn't really make any use of the apparatus. Was holding the hoop quite static. And again, a static apparatus on that balance. Well, no mistakes for her with that exercise, but slightly weak on the technique side of things. And there's the score for Alexandrova, 9.525. She's in first place at the moment, but will that be enough to keep her there? Elena Chalamova from Russia. She was in the bronze medal position at the halfway stage in this competition. And she's already seen Teodora Alexandrova make a mistake on ribbon. Again, very typically Russian, this girl. Very classical in style. Everything finished off to the nth degree. So very polished at such a young age, these gymnasts. Double split leap forward roll to catch. Gymnasts must keep the clubs moving all the time, even when one of the clubs is in the air. Lovely clubs exercise there from Chalamova. 13-year-old from the Astrakhan club. Very, very polished exercise.
Yelena Gatilova from Ukraine is going to perform her exercise with the ribbon.
Yelena Gatilova. Ukrainian gymnasts certainly not getting things their way in this competition. And that's something they're not used to at all. Very extreme looking start. Standing split right on the toe. And that overhead shot showing how the ribbon was still on that pullback throw. And that's the fault the judges are really trying to stamp out here. Ribbon must keep moving all the time, and even when it's spiraling, the judge is looking out for 5 to 6 coils of the ribbon on every spiral. Might seem a pedantic thing, but they're trying to get back to a purer form of rhythmic gymnastics. Four fouette turns. Gatilova, coached by Lubov Serebrenskaya, who's the mother of Katerina Serebrenskaya, who is the European Cup champion. Won the European Cup just a couple of weeks ago. Perhaps the leading gymnast in the world at the moment, so she's got a great role model.
The following exercise with the rope will be performed by Ariana Ruska, Italy.
A great example to follow. Very loud support for Adriana Ruscia from Italy. Starts the rope exercise with the lasso sequence. Often those small little movements cause more problems than the big throws and catches. The rope is moving so quickly. You really do have to watch the end of the rope, know exactly where it's going to finish. Double chenille. Almost had to overreach for the catch. And hand balance to catch. Rhythmic gymnasts not allowed to go through the vertical with the acrobatic elements. Well, technically, a very strong routine from the Italian girl. But again, perhaps not the risks taken there in that exercise as some of the other gymnasts we've seen. Well, Chalamova 9.65, that club's exercise. Not enough to overtake Alexandrova. Borislava Ilieva. Second Bulgarian gymnast from the same club as Alexandrova. Two girls trained together at the Levski Club in Sofia. Not really in a position to challenge for any of the medals here today. Not quite the technical expertise of her teammate, or in fact the speed and difficulty in the exercises. Always good to finish the competition with a clean routine, though. There's nothing worse than finishing with a mistake in your exercise, and there weren't any there. And 9.6 the score for Gatilova. And that's one of the highest marks we've seen in this competition. Now, what can this girl do? Valeria Vatkina from Belarus. At the halfway stage, she was in the silver medal position. Now, what happens to the gold medal really does depend on what she can do on clubs. She's seen Alexandrova make a mistake on ribbon, and she is catchable. Good extension on those jumps. The back leg very high on that split jump. Vatkina, 14-year-old from Minsk. A town with a great rhythmic gymnastics pedigree. That's where the 1992 Olympic champion Marina Lobac came from. And certainly no mistakes in that club's exercise, very sharp into all the throws. Really did look very confident on the catches. And it'll be interesting to see what the judges make of that. There really has been a great tussle going on between the Belarus gymnast and the Bulgarian. Lorena Gurendes from Spain. Gurendes in 9th place at the halfway stage. Not doing quite as well as her teammate Dominguez. Spanish girls take their rhythmic gymnastics very seriously. They have a center in Zaragoza and in Madrid. Most of the gymnasts training full-time, fitting in the schoolwork around the gymnastics. Interesting to see the Western European nations adopting that approach to this sport. It's, of course, the approach that the Russians have been using and the Bulgarians for a very long time, and it does pay off.
Na sestavu se švihadlem nastupuje Agnieszka Brandebura.
9-4-5, the score for Ilieva. That's not really going to change things very much for her. Brandebura from Poland. Double chaîné to start. It's always a worry, that first throw in the rope exercise. Because occasionally the rope is just the piece of apparatus that can have a mind of its own in the air. You really have to work on keeping the rope parallel as it's coming down, so you know exactly where to place the catch. Double illusion, but very messy on the catch. And that's a really good example of the rope not staying together in the air. It really didn't come down as she expected. And she'll lose 0.1 for that drop. The leg very high on the standing split. Perhaps doesn't quite point her toes enough. Almost looks like she's not flexing right to the end of the toes. And look at that. Vatkina has overtaken the Bulgarian girl, Alexandrova. That club's exercise, a 9.7. And it'll be very difficult now for anyone to catch her. Esther Dominguez from Spain, the leading Spaniard at these European Championships. Dominguez, very precise gymnast. Very, very polished for a junior. Almost looks like a miniature version of Carolina Pascual. Great Spanish gymnast of a couple of years ago. They share the same coach, Emilia Beneva, Bulgarian coach, who's been in Spain for a very long time now. She's had a tremendous influence on Spanish gymnastics. Lovely finish. Questionable whether she actually finished in time with the music or just slightly after it, but lovely finish, double turn to catch. Very, very polished performance by the Spanish girl. Typical of one of Boneva's students. Teodora Alexandrova from Bulgaria was the girl who was tipped to take gold here. And indeed, she was the girl who had led all the way through the team competition. She recorded the highest scores on day 1 and 2. But of course, those scores are not carried over here into the individual all-round event. The top 26 gymnasts go through, and they all start with a clean slate. And I bet Teodora Alexandrova is wishing that wasn't the case, because she couldn't quite produce 4 clean performances. And a mistake on ribbon, a dropped ribbon right at the start of the exercise, has cost her the gold medal. And the girl, of course, who's taken that individual all-round gold medal at these European Championships for the junior gymnasts is Valeria Vatkina from Belarus. Tying there with Alexandrova from Bulgaria. Looks like there's been a change on Alexandrova's scores. There's a final confirmation of the results. We have a tie for the gold. And Chalamova from Russia, well, she takes the bronze.